Imagine being told that your crime is so unforgivable, your betrayal so profound, that you will not receive the ordinary execution reserved for common criminals, or even the elaborate torture given to regular traitors, but instead will be subjected to a punishment so extraordinarily brutal that it has been specifically reserved throughout history for only those who have committed the ultimate sin of betraying royal blood. This isn't just about the severity of your crime, but about the fundamental threat you represent to the entire cosmic order that medieval society believed was held together by divine monarchy, making your betrayal not just a political crime, but a form of supernatural rebellion against God himself that requires a response so terrible it will serve as both punishment and cosmic restoration. What you're about to learn about isn't simply extreme torture, but a carefully designed ritual of destruction that was intended to literally tear apart anyone who dared challenge the divine authority of kings, demonstrating to the world that some crimes are so fundamentally evil that they require consequences that transcend normal human understanding of justice and punishment. The punishment known as regicide's dissolution was developed specifically for those who had betrayed royal blood through treason, assassination attempts, or other crimes that challenged the divine right of kings, representing medieval society's most sophisticated attempt to create consequences that matched the cosmic significance of crimes against sacred monarchy. Unlike ordinary treason punishments that focused primarily on deterrence and retribution, regicide's dissolution was designed as a form of ritual purification that would literally dissolve the traitor's body and soul to prevent any possibility of their corruption spreading to the broader social order. The punishment combined elements of drawing and quartering, burning, dissolution in acid, and systematic desecration of remains in a process that could take days to complete, while ensuring that every aspect of the traitor's physical and spiritual existence was systematically destroyed. The theoretical foundation of the punishment drew on medieval beliefs about the relationship between political order and cosmic harmony, with royal traitors being viewed as agents of chaos whose very existence threatened the stability of the universe itself. The legal framework that defined royal treason was deliberately expansive and vague, allowing monarchs to apply this ultimate punishment to virtually anyone whose actions could be interpreted as challenging royal authority while maintaining the appearance of legitimate judicial procedure. The definition of royal treason included not only direct attempts to harm the monarch, but also conspiracy against royal family members, spreading seditious ideas that questioned divine right, failure to prevent treason when it was discovered, and even possession of materials that could be interpreted as treasonous in nature. The elastic nature of royal treason laws meant that scholars whose writings criticized royal policies, nobles who questioned royal decisions, religious figures who taught doctrines incompatible with royal supremacy, and even servants who failed to report suspicious conversations could find themselves facing dissolution for crimes that might have been considered minor offenses under different circumstances. The ritualistic elements of regicide's dissolution were carefully designed to transform the punishment into a cosmic drama that would restore the universal order that royal treason had disrupted, with every aspect of the process being choreographed to convey specific theological and political messages about the nature of monarchy and the consequences of challenging divine authority. The dissolution would begin with elaborate ceremonies that formally declared the traitor to be no longer human, but rather a manifestation of chaos that needed to be eliminated to protect the cosmic order. Religious authorities would perform rituals of excommunication and spiritual condemnation that were intended to separate the traitor's soul from divine protection while making them vulnerable to supernatural punishment. The physical torture would be conducted according to strict protocols that incorporated symbolic elements representing the restoration of royal authority and the purification of the realm from treasonous corruption. The systematic progression of regicide's dissolution involved multiple phases that were designed to destroy every aspect of the traitor's existence while providing maximum educational and entertainment value for the spectators who were required to witness the cosmic restoration of royal authority. The first phase involved the public reading of charges and formal denunciation of the traitors' crimes, with detailed explanations of how their actions had threatened not just the king, but the entire cosmic order that depended on royal authority. The second phase involved systematic torture designed to extract confessions and information about other potential traitors while demonstrating the consequences of challenging royal power. The third phase involved the actual dissolution process, where the traitor's body would be systematically destroyed through a combination of dismemberment, chemical dissolution, and burning that would ensure complete physical elimination. The final phase involved the ceremonial disposal of remains and ritual purification of the execution site to prevent any lingering corruption from affecting the surrounding area. The chemical knowledge that enabled the dissolution process reveals how medieval scholars had developed sophisticated understanding of acids, corrosives, and other substances that could systematically destroy human tissue while keeping victims conscious long enough to experience their complete physical disintegration. The dissolution involved the systematic application of various corrosive substances that would eat away flesh, dissolve bones, and destroy organs in carefully controlled sequences that would maximize suffering while preventing quick death from shock or blood loss. Different acids were used for different body parts and tissue types, with the selection being based on detailed knowledge of how various substances would interact with human physiology to create specific types and intensities of pain. The most sophisticated dissolution protocols incorporated timing mechanisms that would control the application of corrosives to ensure that the process lasted for predetermined periods while maintaining victim consciousness throughout their systematic chemical destruction. The medical support systems that enabled survival during extended dissolution demonstrate how healing knowledge had been completely perverted to serve the goal of prolonging torture rather than preserving life, with teams of physicians using their expertise to ensure that traitors remained alive and aware throughout the complete destruction of their bodies. Medical intervention included techniques for managing blood loss from dissolved tissue, maintaining respiratory function despite chemical damage to lungs and airways, and preventing fatal shock through the strategic application of stimulants and pain management that would keep victims conscious without reducing their sensitivity to the dissolution process. The medical knowledge applied to dissolution represented genuine advances in trauma medicine and toxicology that were dedicated entirely to prolonging systematic torture rather than healing disease or injury. The psychological techniques employed during regicide's dissolution were specifically designed to break down the traitor's sense of identity and connection to human society, while forcing them to confront the cosmic significance of their crimes against royal authority. The psychological torture included systematic destruction of personal identity through forced renunciation of family ties, social connections, and personal beliefs that had motivated their treasonous actions. Victims would be forced to listen to detailed descriptions of how their dissolution would proceed, while being reminded constantly of the cosmic chaos their treason had created and the necessity of their complete elimination to restore universal order. The most devastating psychological element was the deliberate isolation from any source of human comfort or divine mercy, with victims being told that their crimes had placed them beyond the reach of both earthly and heavenly forgiveness. The role of spectators in royal dissolution events transformed these punishments into elaborate state theatre that could influence public opinion and political behaviour throughout the kingdom, while serving multiple functions of entertainment, education, and political propaganda. The extended duration and elaborate ceremonial elements of royal dissolution made these events ideal for public viewing, with different phases being timed to maximize attendance and impact on various segments of the population. Temporary viewing structures would be erected to accommodate crowds that might include foreign ambassadors, domestic nobility, religious authorities, and common citizens who would witness different aspects of the cosmic drama playing out through the Traitors' systematic destruction. The public nature of royal dissolution was specifically designed to create shared traumatic memories that would influence political attitudes and discourage future treason for generations after the actual punishment had concluded. The international diplomatic implications of royal dissolution punishments made them powerful tools of foreign policy that could influence international relations and diplomatic negotiations through the demonstration of absolute commitment to defending royal authority against any form of challenge. Foreign governments that harbored royal traitors or that failed to cooperate with extradition requests would sometimes face threats of dissolution punishment for their own citizens if they fell into royal custody, while diplomatic negotiations often included discussions of treason definitions and punishment protocols that could affect international cooperation and alliance relationships. The reputation for extreme cruelty that developed around royal dissolution practices influenced foreign policy decisions and international law while serving as a form of diplomatic weapon that could affect negotiations without requiring military action or economic pressure. The economic costs of conducting royal dissolution punishments were enormous, requiring specialized personnel, equipment, facilities, and materials that represented investments equivalent to major military campaigns or public works projects. The costs included not only the torture specialists and medical support teams, but also security personnel, crowd control officials, diplomatic observers, and administrative staff who were required to coordinate the complex logistics of state-sponsored dissolution events. The specialized equipment and chemical supplies required for effective dissolution represented ongoing expenses that required dedicated supply chains and storage facilities, while the ceremonial elements required additional investments in costumes, props, and staging that would enhance the political and psychological impact of the punishment. Despite these enormous costs, monarchs considered royal dissolution to be essential investments in maintaining political stability and cosmic order that justified any expense necessary to demonstrate the consequences of challenging divine royal authority. The technological innovations developed specifically for royal dissolution included some of the most advanced applications of chemistry, engineering, and medical technology available in the medieval period, demonstrating how scientific knowledge could be systematically applied to perfecting political punishment when moral constraints were abandoned in favor of state security concerns. The chemical dissolution systems required sophisticated understanding of acid production, storage, and application that represented genuine advances in chemistry and materials science that were dedicated entirely to human destruction rather than beneficial applications. The mechanical systems for restraining victims during dissolution incorporated precision engineering that could maintain perfect positioning throughout extended torture sessions while allowing access for medical monitoring and chemical application. The integration of medical support with chemical torture created feedback systems that could automatically adjust dissolution parameters based on victim responses, representing early applications of systematic optimization to the problem of state-sponsored torture. The religious justifications for royal dissolution reveal how medieval Christianity had been adapted to support absolute monarchy through theological arguments that portrayed royal treason as sin against God himself rather than simply crimes against earthly authority. Church authorities developed elaborate doctrinal frameworks that explained why royal traitors deserved consequences that exceeded normal concepts of justice or mercy, arguing that crimes against divine monarchy required cosmic restoration that could only be achieved through complete elimination of the treasonous corruption. The theological support for dissolution included arguments that royal traitors had forfeited their souls through their crimes against sacred authority, making them spiritually dead even before their physical destruction began. Religious participation in dissolution ceremonies was presented as holy service that helped restore cosmic order and protect Christian society from the chaos that royal treason represented. The few documented cases where royal dissolution was actually implemented provide disturbing insights into how this ultimate punishment affected not only its immediate victims, but also the operators, spectators, and communities that witnessed or participated in these events. Historical records describe dissolution sessions that lasted for days, while victims experienced systematic chemical destruction of their bodies under medical supervision that ensured consciousness throughout the entire process. The psychological impact on witnesses was often severe, with reports of mass hysteria, religious conversion, and long-term trauma among spectators who had witnessed the complete dissolution of human beings for political crimes. Even the torture specialists and medical personnel involved in dissolution often suffered psychological breakdown after participating in such systematic destruction, leading to high turnover rates and difficulty maintaining experienced personnel for royal dissolution programs. The legal precedents established by royal dissolution cases influenced the development of treason law and political justice throughout Europe, creating frameworks that distinguish between ordinary crimes and offences that threatened the fundamental order of society and required extraordinary punishments to address their cosmic significance. The legal theories that emerged from dissolution jurisprudence established principles about the relationship between political crime and universal order that influenced legal thinking about state security, royal authority, and the limits of acceptable political dissent. These precedents created legal foundations for extraordinary punishment that would be repeatedly invoked during periods of political crisis when monarchs faced challenges to their authority and needed to demonstrate the consequences of threatening divine royal power. The eventual abandonment of royal dissolution came not through humanitarian reform, but through practical recognition that these elaborate punishment rituals were becoming politically counterproductive and economically unsustainable as European political systems evolved toward more sophisticated forms of governance and social control. The enormous resources required for dissolution ceremonies became increasingly difficult to justify as monarchs developed more efficient methods of maintaining authority and deterring political opposition, while the international diplomatic costs of maintaining such extreme punishment capabilities began to outweigh their domestic political benefits. The decline of medieval concepts of divine monarchy also reduced the theological justification for cosmic punishment of royal treason, while the rise of professional military and police forces made spectacular public punishment less necessary for maintaining political stability and social order. Perhaps most disturbing of all is how the history of royal dissolution reveals the extraordinary lengths to which political systems will go to protect institutional authority when they view challenges to their power as existential threats to the entire social order, demonstrating how easily legal systems can be corrupted to serve political rather than judicial purposes when governments prioritize regime security over individual rights and human dignity. The fact that entire professional communities could develop around perfecting dissolution torture while maintaining their sense of legitimate service to state authority shows how completely institutional loyalty can override moral reasoning when systematic cruelty is presented as necessary protection of essential political and cosmic order. This historical example provides a powerful warning about the potential for political authority to justify any level of systematic torture when crimes are defined as threats to fundamental social stability rather than simply violations of specific laws or regulations. What do you think about this absolutely terrifying demonstration of how political systems could create punishments so extreme that they transcended normal concepts of justice and entered the realm of cosmic restoration through systematic human destruction? Can you imagine living under a government that claimed the right to dissolve people's bodies with acid for political crimes while presenting such torture as necessary protection of divine order and social stability? The fact that this punishment was specifically reserved for royal traitors really makes you wonder about how political authority defines threats to its power and what levels of systematic cruelty governments are willing to employ when they view political opposition as existential threats to their legitimacy, doesn't it? Share your thoughts in the comments about how contemporary political systems might be creating new forms of extraordinary punishment for those who challenge state authority while claiming such measures are necessary for protecting essential social order. If you found this investigation into the ultimate political punishment as disturbing and relevant as I did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more shocking revelations about how political power has historically been maintained through systematic terror and extraordinary cruelty. Ring that notification bell because our next deep dive will explore another example of how state authority can justify unthinkable punishment when political crimes are defined as threats to fundamental social order. Trust me, these stories will change how you think about the relationship between political power and human rights forever.